It's time for another comic book haul. Stay tuned to see what I've been picking up next. Hey there, comic book fans. It's Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and today, like I said in the intro, we've got a comic book haul video for you. I've been picking up some comics from some of my local comic book shops here in the Baltimore area, and I got some pretty good books to show off, as well as some other things that I've been picking up from eBay recently. And it was something that wasn't on my radar until I went to the Hershey Comic Book Con, and I saw these there, and I'll show off those items as well. But before we begin, definitely hit the like, slap the subscribe, and click on that notification bell so you guys don't miss out on any of the episodes that I put out each and every week, Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. All right, guys, sit back. Let's get ready to do this comic book haul.
5 minutes later.
All right, guys, like I said, there was an item that I saw, or a couple items, I should say, that I saw at the Hershey Comic Con while I was up there getting a lot of autographs and looking at back issues. Although I didn't pick up any up there, I did go through all the dealers and look at everything that they had out. And there were a lot of toy dealers up there as well, with a lot of Funkos. And you guys know I love my Funkos, but I'm not the biggest fan, so it's not always on the radar. But when I went to the con and I saw some of these out, my first thought was, well, I've spent a lot of money at this con. I'm not picking up any additional stuff right now, but let's take a look when we get home if I can pick up the item for a similar price, or maybe from eBay or Amazon. Well, I found them on Amazon, these items, but I did not, the price was a little high, so I ended up going to a couple sellers on eBay to pick up these items right here. I ended up buying the X-Men 97 Funko of Madeline Pryor, the Goblin Queen right there. I think it had been coming out. It says fall of 2023. As I said, I'm not the biggest fan, so I'm not always up on when these Funkos come out, but when I saw it at the show, it's like, oh my god, I gotta have some of these Funkos from the animated series. They had this one right here, so let's move it forward right there. You see she's holding a baby Nathan right there, and it definitely is Goblin Queen. And then I also picked up this one. This is the one I really wanted, and it's Rogue from the animated series. Both of these from the X-Men 97 animated series right there. And I'm looking on the back, and they've got Bishop, Cyclops, Gambit, Magneto. I think I've seen a Jean Grey out there as well. The only other one I'm really interested in is maybe the Jean Grey one. Although the Magneto one looks pretty cool because you can see his eyebrows through the helmet. I think that was pretty cool. So I've added once again to that Funko collection. Love getting those things when I can for really good prices. I didn't overpay for any of this stuff, and that's one of really the only way for the most part that I like to collect Funkos, unless it's something I really want. I'd rather keep it on the cheap and just build a collection to have fun with it more than anything. All right, so let's get to the comic books. That's the real comic book haul here. So over the last month, I've been visiting some of my local comic book shops other than Third Eye Comics, which I do every week for a new comic book day. So the first shop is Cards, Comics, and Collectibles up in Reisterstown, Maryland. The owner, Mark, is also the originator and owner of the Baltimore Comic Con that happens every year here in Baltimore. So I went up there, and it was, I think they might have been having a sale. I cannot remember. I think it was one of those trade paperback sales, and I was looking for something. I don't remember exactly what got me in up there, but I went in, and I'm perusing, taking a look at things, and they didn't have the books, the comics on sale. It was definitely the trade paperbacks for sure. And I happened to run across this right here, and normally I would rather wait for a sale and pay a little bit less, but the condition was fantastic. Plus, it's a newsstand of Wolverine #2, the limited series, Frank Miller right there. This is a book that I have as a 9.6 in my collection. It is one of my 2024 goals list to get all 4 of the limited series as 9.8s. It doesn't have to be newsstand, it can be direct. But right now, I've got issue #1 and issue #4, both as 9.8s, and issue 2 and 3 as 9.6s. And this is one of those that I don't want to go out there and have to pay for a 9.8 straight up. You can find really good rolls like I did right here. But you run that risk of paying, I paid a premium for this, and then hopefully we'll get that 9.8. I think I judged pretty good. It's going to have to definitely take a cleaner press because there are some creases here, but there's no spine ticks. Book like this, though, 9.8's newsstand, guys, went for $503. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my wrong notes. Even more, $772. The last couple sales before that, $663 and $500 for a newsstand 9.8 of this right here. This book right here has a really good chance, and that's why I bought that day. I didn't want to walk out of there and wait for that shop to have a sale at some point. I was afraid that book would vanish much sooner because they do a lot of shows. They will travel and they will do other comic book shows, and I was afraid that this book would be long gone before they ever had another sale of their comics in the store. So I went ahead and picked this up, and we'll get this into the shop. We'll clean and press it, and we'll get that in to be graded at some point. Even 9.6's newsstand do really well. Recent sales are still at $147, $161, $180 are the three most recent sales on that. So I think I'll do pretty good on this. If it had been a direct version, I might not have spent the money on it because those direct prices on a 9.6, if it comes down, are literally have dipped under $100. So I would not have done this if it had been a direct. That's basically what I'm saying. So that's what I picked up at that shop. Now, I did pick up some other things while I was there. I think mostly new comics I picked up that day. I don't remember what trade paperback I might have picked up, though. But we definitely, since we're focusing on comics, that's what I wanted to do on this here and show you what I picked up. More recently, I went to Collector's Corner up in Parkville, Maryland. They had a huge 50% off everything in their store sale, including some of their premium items and things that were just priced recently. And I ran up, and I wasn't really sure what they had. They had put out some photos on social media of some pretty good books. In fact, they had a Spider-Man #1 in the stand. I think that was one of the things that was excluded. They had that in their glass display. I didn't see the price on it, but it was already excluded anyway. They weren't going to sell that for 50% off, and I couldn't have afforded that anyway. But it was kind of cool to see that up close. But I went through all their back issues, and I picked out a few things that were pretty cool. None of these were things that are on my radar. I was just looking for high-grade books that I can invest very little into, honestly, and hopefully with a good clean and press, put some of my effort into it and get it in the CGC to be able to turn it into more of a premium item, whether I'm going to keep it for myself or to resell sooner rather than later. I found some pretty good books. So let's start with this. Tomb of Dracula, #11. And at one point, I had a pretty good run of most of the Tomb of Dracula books. Most of them. I didn't have issue number 10 with Blade or anything, but we've got issue number 11 here. And I pretty much had sold most of that collection early on a few years ago, and it's a great book. Don't get me wrong. I love it, especially when Tom Palmer came on to do the inking for Gene Colan. I love the book, but not as much as I love the Tom Palmer work on the Avengers with John Buscema. But I picked this up because of the condition. This is a really, really nice copy. The only thing is it looks like it's a spine roll, but it's so perfectly done that I don't think it really is a spine roll. The staples, let me see if I can go forward on that just a little bit. The staples are on the front, and the spine does go past it a little bit, but it is so good, I don't really think it actually is a spine roll. So that's going to be a little tough to clean and press with the way I do things. I don't want to tear the paper around those staples, and that can be a little bit tricky. So, but this is a really good book, and I bought it based on condition, and it wasn't expensive. I think this was they had a $15 price tag on there, and so $7.50 for a book like this. And in condition like this, I thought was an excellent buy. And I will give you 9.8s, although I don't know if it will actually meet it or not, but I wanted to give that research. These were on-the-spot judgments buying these books. 9.8 recently went for 503. 9.6 went for 485. But I will tell you something. I've seen a live sale happening still on eBay. You can buy it now for $195 for a 9.6. You don't have to wait around and pay more for 485, right? Even 9.4s, though, can drop down. I've seen a recent sale drop down to $59, but another one went for $125. So it's a little bit all over the place on something like this. But really good condition. You can't go wrong with a good Bronze Age book like this from 1973. It's just a really good book, and it's a great condition right there. Now, one of the things that they had put on social media that got me interested in going up there and to take a look at them, and I wasn't sure if I could find it. A lot of their boxes aren't really organized alphabetically, and I'm not a huge fan, but it can be fun sometimes to dig through things and see if you can find it. But I couldn't find it in the initial run through all their boxes, and it turned out they had it setting out on another part of their comic display, and it was this here. It's an Infinity Gauntlet #1. Everybody knows what this issue is. Jim Starlin wrote this. We've got George Perez on the art. But this is a newsstand, and I've never seen a newsstand on this. And they had about 5 to 7 copies of this here. And they had a $25 price tag, so half of that, $12.50. I went ahead and took a look at every one of them, and I tried to pick out the very best one. I don't know if it'll hit a 9.8. Interestingly, 9.8 on a newsstand, most recent sale was $415. So I'm going to do the best I can to get this into the shop when I'm in the shop and try to get this up as best I can. 9.6 has dropped down to $100. That's a pretty big drop off, even if it's a newsstand. So we'll see how this does once I get it cleaned and pressed. Now, a book I love picking up, and this is a book that I have gotten graded before. I've got my 9.8s on, out of my PC even, and I've sold them several years ago because it was a key several years ago as well. It's still key. In fact, it's even a bigger, may even be a bigger key right now, although the prices don't reflect it. But with the new Absolute Power storyline going on in DC, they've made the main antagonist Amanda Waller. And this is her first appearance in Legends #1. This is from November of 1986. John Byrne was doing the artwork, and this is her first appearance. Now, when I sold this book at 9.8 several years ago, I was getting in that 150 range, 160 maybe. This book has dropped down. They've even had sales under $100. I've seen recent sales of $110, $89, and one that actually went up to $139. So it's, again, a little bit all over the place, but definitely down from what it was before. This looked like to be a really nice copy. I couldn't see any spine text along that full color spine right there. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. It's a book that may or may not actually go into CGC anytime soon. All right, at this point, I don't know if it's going to go up in value and all. And I'm trying not to send in books with that kind. If it's a 9.8 and it's only worth $100, maybe to $125, the problem is if it drops down even to a 9.6, it's so less desirable that value, it's like you can't even sell it for what it's kind of valued at because nobody really wants it. So then you have to sell it for even less, and that just keeps dragging that market down. So I don't know if I want to continue. That would be one of those. I would probably have to do that as a pre-screen because I don't want this book as a 9.6. All right, couple books left here. Now, this is a book that I had on my PC. In fact, I've got it in the office. I intended to get it cleaned and pressed and get it into CGC when I pulled it from the personal collection, and it's been a while. But I'm glad I haven't done anything with it because I bet you it would be just sitting there now. It is the Moon Knight #1 from 2006. And this is when David Finch was doing the artwork on there. Very popular book. And when I pulled this book a year ago, it had a lot of potential to go into CGC. Probably my guess is that was a $150 9.8. Well, today, the most recent sale was an $85 on this. and a sale just prior to that was all the way down to $39. This book will not go into CGC. I bought that without really looking it back up. I just remember that, like, oh, that's one of those books that I had pulled to possibly get cleaned and pressed. The reason I didn't push it at the time was my copy had a little bit of a spine tick in that solid black area right over here. Slightly color breaking, but I wasn't going to send it in and not get a 9.8. So I pulled back, but it was still top of mind when I saw this. So that's why I went ahead and picked it up. And again, for $7, it's still a really good book. You never know. We may get a second season of Moon Knight. Maybe this will increase the market again. I don't know. I don't want to really rely on those kind of things, though. All right. 2 more books, but this one is actually a really good book. And this is why I like to go to Collector's Corner when they have these sales on most of their books. Like I said, the Spider-Man #1 was not on sale, but most everything else was. Just about everything else was, including some of their other key books in that same display. And they had a really nice copy of Inhumans #5. This, of course, is from March of 1999, the first appearance of the new Black Widow. I'll never be able to pronounce her name. Milana Belova. I'm probably butchering that. I should go back and watch the Black Widow film more and see how they actually pronounced it. But I'd never had that book. I'd had her second appearance. I can't remember if that was in New Avengers or was in the Black Widow series, but I really like that character. I'm curious to even see this because I've never read this, so I don't even know what her first appearance was really like. So that'll be fun. I will inspect this book. This book they had as a $60 price tag. I ended up paying $30 for it. I think it's in really good shape, and I'm realizing I don't have my notes up there to give you any prices on when a 9.8 runs, but what I'll do is I will put the graphic on the screen here so you can see what some of the most current 9.8s have gone for recently. All right, guys, so we're down to the last book, and this is a book I bought on condition. Age, condition, and it turns out that it is a very low, it has a very low count on the CGC census, but I also bought this book because the condition looked scary good. And for only $7 or $7.50, because again, it's another $15 book. This right here, you never know what you're going to find when you're just digging. This is I Love Lucy Comics #4 from 1954 from Dale Comics. And semi-photo cover. These are key books, but there's an audience out there for these. Highest grade on the census is a 9.2. And I didn't know that at the time. All I know is that when I was thumbing through and I saw this, and I always take a look at a lot of these Dale books. I take a look at a lot of late 60s gold key books, anything like that. And I take a look at the condition. And you're not going to have really color breaks in this white, obviously. But I don't see any spine ticks at all on this. I mean, if anything, what you've got is maybe some yellowing of the pages, some aging. I mean, it's from 1954, for God's sake. But, man, this is a really nice book. And after looking it up and seeing what the highest grade on the census... In fact, I don't really go in the census as much as I probably should. But I did read it in the notes in Go Collect, and it said no grade higher than a 9.2. And that actually sold here, I think, 2022 for $432. That's a 9.2, the highest grade. And I went to the census to confirm that that was the highest grade, and it is. There's only 18 on the census on this. So this is a book I'm actually scary excited about getting in the shop and getting this into CGC to see if we can become top of census on something like this. I mean, that would be crazy to be able to invest a book. Think about this. If you could at least pull a 9.4, let's just say, use that as the example. This book right here, I literally would have invested $7.50 in it. And what we got, vintage books. So what is that? $36? I mean, give or take, depending on your membership with CGC. Shipping. So let's round it off up to $50 shipping to and from plus grading. So $50. Just under $60 investment in this, and I'm really optimistic with this. But a book that sold for only well, only sold for $432 a few years ago. With this age and condition, I would dare say you could probably make the same amount for that today. So I'm pretty excited about trying to see what we can do with this. And definitely I will document this journey down the road. And we know we'll have an episode down the road about this as well. But guys, that is it. Thank you for joining me for this comic book haul. I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought about all the books I picked up today, as well as those Funkos. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed everything. Have a great rest of the day. And remember, every comic has a story.